9 years old, Aisha. Is he really mine?
You're asking me that now, after everything your family did?
Your mother sent security to remove me. She erased us.
I never knew. I searched 2 years and found nothing.
I delivered that letter myself. I was told it was yours. My own mother did this. She answers for it.
9:42 in the evening, and the marble lobby of the Kong Horizon Tower was full of light and champagne and people who had never once worried about where their next meal would come from. Then a single shot cracked through the string quartet, and a 9-year-old boy in a rented blue blazer threw his small body in front of a stranger he had just met. A man he did not know was his father. The bullet meant for Jae-won Kang tore into Aisha Whitmore's shoulder instead. And in the 3 seconds it took for the boy to fall, every lie that had built the last 10 years of two people's lives began to collapse, one crack at a time, like ice giving way under a weight it was never built to hold. Nobody in that room knew his name yet. Nobody knew that the child bleeding on the cold marble floor carried the same blood as the billionaire he had just saved. Nobody knew, except one woman across the city, still finishing her shift, who was about to answer a phone call that would end the peace she had spent a decade building. If a stranger's child saved your life tonight, would you want to know his name? Subscribe and tell me, where are you watching from? 10 years earlier, Aisha Whitmore stood in that same lobby, 8 months pregnant, holding a manila folder with an ultrasound photo tucked inside like a secret she was finally brave enough to share. She had flown across the country to tell Jae-won the truth in person, because some things should not be said over a phone. She never got past security. "Ma'am, Mr. Kang does not know you. Please step away from the desk." The guard's voice was polite and final, the way cruelty often is when it wears a uniform. Aisha tried to explain, tried to say his name, tried to hold up the folder like proof of something the room had already decided did not matter. A crowd gathered, investors, reporters, junior staff with their phones half raised, and she watched pity and judgment pass across their faces in the same breath. She was escorted out through the service entrance, past the delivery trucks, into a rain that did not care how much she had already lost that day, her heels sinking into a puddle as she looked back one last time at a building that had already decided she did not belong inside it. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived at her apartment, signed with his name, offering her money to disappear and never contact the Kang family again. She never cashed the check. She burned the letter instead, packed one suitcase, and moved to Empire City, where nobody would ever again look at her and see a woman chasing a man's money. She built a life instead. Nurse. Single mother. A small apartment with a view of nothing special and a son who filled every corner of it with noise and questions and a laugh that sounded, though she would never admit this out loud, exactly like his father's. Now it was 10 years later, and Aisha was standing at the nurse's station at Empire City General when the trauma alert came through. Gunshot wound, male, approximately 9 years old, incoming in 4 minutes. She did not think about the age. She did not think about anything except the job in front of her, until the gurney came through the doors and she saw the small silver crane pendant resting against his chest, the one she had never taken off him, the one Jae-won had placed around her neck himself the night he told her some promises were meant to outlast people. Malik. Her voice broke the professional calm of the trauma bay in half. "That's my son. That is my son." Behind her, a man in a torn tuxedo jacket burst through the same doors, blood on his hands that was not his own, shouting a name the hospital staff did not recognize but Aisha did. Immediately, painfully, after 10 years of trying to forget the sound of it, Jae-won Kang, standing 3 feet away from the boy who had just taken a bullet meant for his heart, with no idea that the child on the table shared his blood. For a moment, neither Aisha nor Jae-won said anything. There was only the beeping of monitors, the shouted vitals, the terrible efficient choreography of a trauma team fighting to keep a 9-year-old alive. Aisha pushed past her own shock and did her job, because her hands had learned long ago how to keep working even when her heart was breaking. Malik was stabilized, wheeled into surgery, and the doors closed between her and the only thing that had ever mattered more to her than her own survival. Word of the shooting spread through Kang Horizon Group before the surgeon had even scrubbed in. A hostile bid for the company's Empire City expansion had been building for months, led by board members who wanted Jae-won gone, and a public shooting at his own gala handed them exactly the chaos they needed. By midnight, Chairwoman Yoon-hee Kang, Jae-won's mother and the true power behind the family empire, arrived at the hospital in a car with tinted windows and a face that betrayed nothing. She found her son standing outside the operating room, and she found standing 3 feet from him a face she recognized instantly and had hoped never to see again. "You," the chairwoman said quietly, and something in her voice made Aisha's spine go cold. Jae-won looked between the two women, sensing a history he had never been told about, a silence too specific to be coincidence, too heavy to be the first time these two women had stood this close to each other. Jae-won waited until his mother stepped away to take a call before he turned to Aisha in the hallway, his voice low and shaking with something between grief and fury. "You work here. You're the nurse who called his name like you'd known him his whole life. How old is he?" 9, Aisha said, and watched the number land in his chest like a blow. 9. He did the math the way men do when they are terrified of the answer. "Aisha, is he mine? If you believed for 10 years someone chose money over your own child, could you ever forgive a lie you never asked for? Like this, and tell me honestly." She had rehearsed this moment for 10 years in 100 different versions, and in every one of them she was calm, controlled, ready. Standing in that hallway with her son's blood still faintly on her scrubs, she was none of those things. "You tell me," she said, voice trembling. "You're the one who sent security to throw a pregnant woman out of your lobby. You're the one who mailed me a check to disappear. I never sent security anywhere. I never wrote you a letter." His confusion was too raw, too immediate to be performance. "I searched for you for 2 years, Aisha. I was told you left the country. I was told you didn't want to be found." The floor tilted beneath her. 10 years of certainty, that he had chosen money and status over her, over their child, cracked open in a single sentence. She reached into the small zipped pocket of her scrub jacket, the one she never let anyone touch, and pulled out a folded, water-stained photograph. An ultrasound, dated, time-stamped, the only proof she had kept of the day she tried to tell him the truth and was erased for it. "I flew to Kong Tower 8 months pregnant to tell you myself. Your security removed me. 2 weeks later a letter came signed with your name, telling me to take the money and disappear. I never cashed it. I still have it in a box at home." Jae-won stared at the photograph like it was the only honest thing anyone had shown him in a decade. "I never wrote that letter," he said again, quieter this time, like a man realizing the ground he had been standing on his entire adult life was never solid at all. "Someone did this. Someone in my own company did this to us." He pulled out his phone and called his chief of staff, Robert Yoon, a man who had worked beside the Kang family for over 20 years and knew where every body, real and metaphorical, was buried. "Rob, pull every visitor log, every security report, every piece of outgoing correspondence from 10 years ago with my name on it that I did not personally approve. Tonight." Behind them, unnoticed, Chairwoman Kang had returned in time to hear every word. The surgery took 6 hours. Aisha sat outside the operating room in a chair too small for the weight she was carrying, and somewhere around hour 4, Jae-won sat down beside her without asking permission, because some griefs do not require an invitation to be shared. He did not reach for her hand. He simply sat, close enough that she could feel him trying not to fall apart, and for the first time in 10 years, neither of them said a single defensive word. "I named him Malik," she said finally, staring at the door. "It means king. I wanted him to know he came from something, even when I couldn't tell him what. He saved my life tonight," Jae-won said, his voice cracking on every word. "A boy I didn't know was mine threw himself in front of a bullet for a stranger. What kind of man does that make me? That my own son had more courage toward me than I ever showed him." "You didn't know," Aisha said, and she was surprised to hear herself defending him. "I spent 10 years hating a man who never actually did what I thought he did. I don't know what to do with that yet." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I know I'm not leaving this hospital, and I know I'm not leaving either of you again." By morning the story had leaked. Empire City's business press ran headlines about the Kang heir's secret son, and the board members circling Jae-won's company saw their opening. An emergency meeting was called. 2 directors, backed quietly by Chairwoman Kang's oldest allies, demanded Jae-won issue a public statement denying paternity until a court-ordered test could be completed. framing the boy as a liability to the company's stock price during the most sensitive acquisition of the decade. Deny him, they said, or step down. Jae-won refused before they finished the sentence. I will not deny my son to protect a stock price, he said, and the room went silent in a way boardrooms rarely do. His mother, watching from the head of the table, said nothing, but her silence had never once meant surrender. Someone inside that family has kept this secret 10 years. Before we learn who, predict it in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the truth. That afternoon, Robert Yoon found Jae-won alone in his office and closed the door behind him, his hands shaking in a way 20 years of composure had never allowed before. I have to tell you something I've carried for 10 years, he said. The letter. The one sent to Aisha. I delivered it. I was told it came from you. I didn't know it was a lie until years later, and by then I told myself it was too late to matter. Who told you to send it? Jae-won already knew the answer before Rob said it. Your mother. Rob placed a worn folder on the desk, old courier receipts, a forged signature analysis he'd quietly commissioned years ago out of guilt, and a handwritten note in Chairwoman Kang's own hand instructing the security desk to remove, and I quote, the woman claiming a connection to my son permanently. She had done it to protect a planned merger with the Choi family, sealed at the time by a proposed marriage alliance that a scandal and a mixed-race grandchild would have destroyed. It was never really about Aisha. It was about power, and Jae-won had been a piece on a board he never knew he was playing on. Jae-won walked into his mother's office holding the folder, and for the first time in his adult life, he did not lower his voice for her. 10 years, he said. You didn't just keep a woman from me. You let me believe I abandoned my own child. You let my son grow up without a father because it was convenient for a deal that fell through anyway. His mother did not deny it. She had built an empire believing that love was a liability the family could not afford, and she told him so plainly without apology, the way people do when they have justified something so many times it no longer feels like cruelty to them. I protected this family, she said. I would do it again. You will not get the chance, Jae-won said. I am done letting you decide who deserves to be loved in this family. The board meeting that followed was the shortest in company history. Jae-won walked in, Robert Yoon's folder in hand, and laid the entire decade bare in front of the directors who had tried to use his son against him. The forged letter, the falsified visitor logs, his mother's handwriting on every page. The hostile bid collapsed within the hour, shareholders siding decisively with the man who had just proven, publicly and at enormous personal cost, that he would not be controlled. Chairwoman Kang was quietly removed from operational leadership, her name kept from the headlines only because Jae-won asked for that mercy on her behalf. Not forgiveness but restraint, because some justice does not need an audience to be real. Malik woke up 2 days later, groggy, confused, and immediately asking if the cool motorcycle guy from the party was okay. Nobody had the heart to tell him yet how much that question would change his life. When Jae-won finally sat beside his hospital bed and gently explained who he was, Malik studied him for a long, quiet moment with his mother's steady eyes, then simply asked, "Does this mean I get a dog now?" And the entire room, for the first time in 3 days, laughed until it cried. 3 months later, Jae-won had not tried to buy his way into their lives. No extravagant gifts, no dramatic declarations. He showed up instead every Tuesday for Malik's physical therapy, every Saturday for pancakes that he burned more often than not, learning slowly how to be present instead of powerful. Aisha watched him earn it, inch by inch, and did not rush forgiveness she was not ready to give. You don't get instant access just because you finally know the truth, she told him one evening on her small apartment balcony. You get the chance to prove it every single day for as long as it takes. Then I'll keep showing up, he said, for as long as it takes. And he meant it in the smallest ways that mattered most. Remembering Malik took his medicine at 8, not 9, learning that Aisha liked her coffee black after a double shift and said nothing when he simply started making it that way without being asked. She did not say she loved him that night. But she let him stay for dinner, and when Malik reached up to touch the silver crane pendant now resting matching against his father's collar, he said, "Mom, you always said this was for luck." Aisha smiled, the first full, unguarded smile in a decade. "Turns out," she said, "it was for family. Some lies take a bullet to undo. If the truth came 10 years late, would you let love back in? Or is surviving alone reason enough to say no? 10 years of silence undone by one small act of courage. Love was never lost between them, only stolen and mislabeled by people too afraid of what it would cost them. If tonight's story moved something in you, tell me the one word you would use to describe what real love owes the people it left behind. And before you go, this has been another story from Empire City Romance Stories, where the truth always finds its way home, even when it takes the long way. If Aisha and Jae-won's story stayed with you, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one. Drop a comment telling me what you'd have done in her shoes, like this video if it moved you, and turn on notifications so you're here the moment our next story goes live. We'll see you in the next one.